We cannot just dismiss ludicrous, far-fetched claims that undermine confidence in that system. It has to be addressed. Hi, and thank you so much for joining me for another exciting episode of Unanswered Questions. Well, why does it matter that Meghan Markle reportedly left Portland Hospital and arrived back at Frogmore Cottage a mere 2 hours after the birth of Prince Archie? Well, I think a bit of an emperor's new clothes situation has actually occurred around the pregnancy of Meghan with Prince Archie and also the birth of Prince Archie. And I'd like to delve into that and maybe try to come up with some answers. Now, I'll be accused of a nefarious motive, just dragging this very old story up for clicks. But I don't think I need to justify my motivations because I didn't actually marry into the royal family. I didn't claim to give birth to 2 children that are now firmly in the line of succession, and that is a major point of this video. I also didn't shatter the relationships of 2 families. All I've done is seek the truth. Now, there's a very good source for those stories about Meghan Markle allegedly leaving Portland Hospital, apparently too early, after not one epidural, but a top-up epidural. And the source of that story was her husband, Prince Harry, in his memoir, Spare. Now, like I said in the opening, there's a bit of an emperor's new clothes situation that's unfolded across social media over the last 5 years, with people repeatedly showing us compelling visual evidence. Now, this visual evidence is often dismissed as photoshopped in some way, doctored in some way, and the people that raise it and present it are dismissed as vile trolls or conspiracy theorists. Yet, a lot of these images are sourced from somewhere reliable, like Getty's Images, and they're put up side by side for side-by-side comparison. But like I said, it is dismissed because people say, well, it would have to be forensically proved. Photographs would have to be taken on the same day in the same light from the same position in order to reach any definitive conclusion. And I guess if you were in a court of law, that's exactly what would be claimed, and probably the visual evidence would be dismissed. So for the purpose of this video, I am going to dismiss the visual evidence. But before I do, I will say that I have looked into it myself. And the most compelling visual evidence that I have found on Getty's Images is the photograph of Meghan Markle when she appeared at the British Fashion Awards, and also photographs of her that appeared shortly before the British Fashion Awards. To me, her bump grew at an alarming rate. When she turned up for the British Fashion Awards, she sort of went from zero to hero. It was just quite startling. She was very heavily pregnant in that black dress, and it just really didn't add up for me. Now, I may be completely wrong, but that is something that I have noticed. That image is freely available, and I viewed it on Getty's Images, so I can have faith that it actually hasn't been doctored, can't I? So like I said, for the purpose of this video, we are going to dismiss all that visual evidence and all the claims related to visual evidence. Because I think the question asked in the title of this video is enough. It should be enough to spark a very serious inquiry. Another compelling question that sort of led me to make this video was this. The world's media has picked over Prince Harry's memoir, Spare. I mean, they've picked it to the bone. It's just a carcass lying on the ground. Any minor controversial story they could garner from it, they've done. They've elaborated, they've delved, they've deep dived, they've pulled it apart, they've used it to humiliate him, they've used it to undermine his credibility, they've questioned the veracity of his claims over and over and over. And yet, this story, they've left it alone. Why? Why? Clearly the story in Spare about the birth of Prince Archie is completely ludicrous. It doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. He should be questioned about it. He should be held to account for it. His motivation for writing it should be explored. But do any of MSM actually delve into this story? Do any of them hold him to account about this aspect of his memoir? No, they don't. And I find that highly suspicious. In my opinion, it simply just can't be true. No hospital would release a woman so soon after giving birth. Usually there's a minimum 24-hour observation, and particularly after an epidural with a top-up epidural. So why isn't this pursued? Why? If anyone else came up with such a farcical, ridiculous story, would they get away with it? Or would they be questioned if they were in the public eye? But everyone gives it a wide berth. Now, the only explanation I can come up with is that Harry just made it all up, just for the sake of the book. Oh, it doesn't matter. But actually it does, because Prince Archie is actually 6th in line for the throne now. He's moved up a spot because, of course, after the late Queen Elizabeth died, everyone moved up a spot, and Prince Archie is now 6th in line for the British throne. He's in the line of succession. So if Harry was merely trolling the public, trying to gaslight the public, trying to get them all excited about his ridiculous story, trying to get everyone talking so that they would get attention onto their brand or something ridiculous, some ridiculous motivation, some public sort of attention-seeking motivation, well, that should be questioned. That is highly questionable. I mean, how irresponsible to willingly introduce doubt, to willingly introduce a warming pan story in this day and age? Why would you do that unless you were trying to undermine the monarchy? So it's pretty damning, isn't it? Because he's just taking the book-buying public for granted. He's taking them for gullible fools. But let's assume that in this case that the whole book is just pretty much made up. We don't know which bits are true. It was the whole justification, though, for the way he's acted to date. The decisions he's made, the hurt he's caused the late Queen, his family, his country. It was all supposed to be justified with this book. It was his explanation. It was his excuse for his behaviour. It was designed to swing public sympathy his way. But it can't if we don't know which bits are true and which bits are fiction. I have made 2 other videos about this topic, trying to get interest in this question from the mainstream media so that they would examine it. And every time, like I said, I haven't relied on the very compelling visual evidence, which everybody finds so easy to debunk by just saying, oh, it's been photoshopped. I deliberately leave the compelling visual evidence about apparent discrepancies in pregnancy size over the timeline, apparent adjustment to the position of the pregnancy bump in numerous photographs. I've deliberately left that out in order to prove that this story is interesting, compelling, a mystery, and questionable, even relying on the words of Prince Harry, also on other esteemed royal biographers. In the next few videos, I'm going to be delving into Lady C's book because she provides compelling background and evidence and motivation around this subject. Now, surely courtiers have read it. They've read Harry's memoir. It was announced at the time, actually, that senior aides and courtiers would be reading it in order to check for legality, to check for fallouts against the royal family in case they needed to be forewarned and forearmed. So it's their job to read it. It's their job to check it out and to be on the ball and to report to their principals if there is indeed anything that would actually harm them long term. Well, I think that this story is the most harmful story, one of the most harmful stories in the whole book against the royal family, because it undermines confidence in the institution of the monarchy. If people cannot have confidence that the line of succession is legitimate, then they will lose confidence in the whole concept. It is undermining public confidence. And I can't believe that any courtier read this ridiculous story and didn't feel that it was imperative to actually chase it up with the king and have action taken. And real proof, not just their word, real proof provided. And yet they do nothing. No explanation, no containment of damage, no distancing from this narrative. They just wait for time to pass. They hope that the story will just fade away, that the public will lose interest. They have short memories. It's been proven time and time again after yet another royal scandal that the public does indeed have short memories, and they are very, very forgiving. Well, I'm going to share it again, this wonderful yarn. If you agree with me and you think that this sounds really unlikely, I'd like you to express your concerns to the palace. Just send them a letter, send them an email. But really, if you are concerned about the line of succession and that we don't really know what's going on, due to Prince Harry's, son of the King's, own words in his memoir, it should be explored. And really, clarification should be issued from the palace. They should also call for clarification from Prince Harry himself. Now, people will say, they would never lower themselves to address that ridiculous book. Well, I'm sorry, they have to address it because it's telling a story about a very important member of the royal family, Prince Archie. Extremely important, 6th in line for the throne. They need to address it. They need to clear it up. They need to clarify it. Because the public will put up with love affairs, they'll put up with dodgy financial deals, they'll put up with a lack of transparency. They have enormous sympathy for the king at the moment, who is bravely, very bravely battling cancer. I have enormous admiration for his courage. And, we all got a scare quite recently, didn't we, where he had to cancel engagements and get checked over in hospital. It gave us a scare. My stomach actually plummeted to the depths. I thought, no, it's too soon. We don't want to lose him this soon. He has to have more of a chance to put his mark on his reign. But he also needs to clear all this up, I think, before his eldest son ascends to the throne. I think he owes it to William. He owes it to Catherine. He owes it to his grandchildren. Because the speculation is real, and it is undermining faith in the whole institution. Over the years, nurses, doctors, women who've given birth, like myself, said there's no way that this could have unfolded the way it did. No way. I've received huge pushback too against actually drawing attention to this story. And the pushback is always emotional. Comments like, leave it alone. It was a long time ago now. Why do you keep dragging it up? You're a monster who wishes to hurt innocent children. Let it rest. What's it to you? Well, it's a matter of principle. Because to act like this, whether it's true or not, is gaslighting the public. It's saying you don't matter enough for us to take your concerns and legitimate questions that you have caused seriously. And I don't think that's good enough. So here we go. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not my invented take. This is the story that Prince Harry, son of the King, wrote in his memoir that's been published all around the world. It's his account of the birth of Prince Archie, 6th in line to the throne. Now, I want you to listen to it and tell me if you think in any way it sounds plausible. If you think it isn't, why hasn't it been examined? Why hasn't Harry and his ghostwriter been questioned and held to account? Why are the royal family prepared to let the doubts Prince Harry's publication caused? It's festering, and yet it remains ignored. This is what he said. I don't remember phoning anyone, texting them. I remember watching the nurses run tests on my hour-old son. And then we were out of there, into the lift, into the underground car park, into the people carrier and gone. Within 2 hours of our son being born, we were back at Frogmore. 1 hour-old son had tests. Then they were out of there, and within 2 hours of that son being born, they were back at Frogmore. It's an approximate, I believe, over half an hour drive from Portland Hospital back to Frogmore. So why is that silly story accepted by anyone? I don't accept it. And that's not a distorted conspiracy theory just dragged up on the internet. This is the king's youngest son giving an account of the birth of Prince Archie. So, serious question. What hospital allows any woman to leave a few hours after an epidural, let alone the wife of a prince of the realm? Now, they claim it was Portland Hospital, so they claim it was their responsibility. I don't know whether it was. I don't know whether it was another sort of medical clinic that was under the auspices of Portland Hospital in another area of London. I don't know. I've heard that suggested, but I haven't been able to definitively find out. However, this is the story of the epidural. Per Prince Harry's book Spare, Meg was doing a lot of deep breathing for pain, and then the deep breathing stopped working. She was in so much pain she needed an epidural. So off went the music, and then Harry says, whoa, vibe change. But this is the important part. She was given an injection at the base of her spine. Still, the pain didn't let up. The medicine apparently wasn't getting where it needed to go. It still went into her body, but it didn't get where it needed to go. So she was given a top-up. So 2 epidurals. The second one, the top-up, was definitely successful. Like I said, I had an epidural with one of my sons due to complications, so I know what that feels like. And that's why I find this just so unbelievable. The care I got, the warnings I got, the monitoring I got. I just can't believe that Meghan Markle didn't get the same standard of care. And finally, the other ludicrous story, the laughing gas. And this is a direct quote from the book. Meg was so calm. I was calm too. But I saw 2 ways of enhancing my calm. One, Nando's chicken, brought to him by his bodyguards. 2, he sounds like such a winner, doesn't he? 2, a canister of laughing gas besides Meg's bed. I took several slow, penetrating hits, Meg bouncing on a giant purple ball, a proven way of giving nature a push, laughed and rolled her eyes. I took several more hits, and now I was bouncing too. When her contractions began to quicken and deepen, a nurse came and tried to give some laughing gas to Meg. There was none left. The nurse looked at the tank, looked at me, and I could see the thought slowly dawning. Gracious, the husbands had it all. Sorry, I said meekly. Meg laughed. The nurse laughed and quickly changed the canister. No, that's not how it would have worked. Every single nurse that has actually contacted me said at that point, prince or not, he would have been thrown out of the hospital, and possibly charges would have been laid. Because that was a highly illegal act that he took. He stole a major drug from a health facility without permission. He would have been thrown out at that point and probably the police called. Or do royals get away with such criminal behaviour, illegal drug use? Do they? Do they? That's a pertinent question. Maybe Harry's memoir should actually be referred to the Metropolitan Police to see whether he should actually be facing charges over this action. Because this isn't just a little jolly romp. This is actually a criminal offence. The other thing that nurses have told me is that they wouldn't have ever laughed. They would have had to report it. They would have had to provided explanation for any drug that was missing. They wouldn't have merely just changed the canister. Also, if Meghan Markle had her contractions quickening on her bouncy ball, which I also used to get my pregnancy going, you wouldn't be laughing if your husband took the very thing that you needed in that moment. You would have thrown him out of the room as well. And anyway, what was the point of putting this story in other to make him look like a horrendous little man baby that can't even act responsibly when he's about to gain a son? Now, every single medical professional that has contacted me via my comment section has told me that this didn't happen. And I've had that from doctors. I've had that from obstetricians. I've had that from nurses. They have said this did not happen. So that raises the question, why isn't he being held to account for putting a ludicrous story in his memoir that directly affects the public confidence in the royal family, in the institution of the monarchy? It is, look, if he was a little nobody, no longer with a title, that was no longer in the line of succession, good luck to him. Who cares? We can all dismiss it and say it's just more fabrications. Ignore it. It's a boring book anyway. Let's all move on. My point, if you can get my point, is Harry is in the line of succession, so he has a responsibility to uphold the institution of the monarchy and do nothing to damage it. Prince Archie has been granted his title, that is his birthright, apparently, and also been placed in the line of succession. So therefore, we cannot just dismiss ludicrous, far-fetched claims that undermine confidence in that system. It has to be addressed. So I think this video has responsibly raised the spectre of those doubts, this question to the palace. And like I said, if you agree with me, then ask for clarification. Politely ask for clarification. The doubts have been sown by Prince Harry himself in the legitimacy of Prince Archie's birth story, because it seems ludicrous and it does not add up. There are more questions coming, more episodes with the questions in the title in this Unanswered Questions podcast. Like I said, next one, I will be addressing some very valid points that Lady C made in her book. One of the most interesting aspects of her book for me was the fact that she provided a possible explanation of why, even though Harry and Meghan were very aware of the controversy, were very aware of the doubts and the rumours that were prevalent, very prevalent out there, they deliberately doubled down to fuel those rumours. And she gives a really interesting explanation for that in her book. Let me know what you think about it all down below, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.